This is an upgrade guide for Maestros Massacre. I hope I'm saying that right, but the Grixis or blue, black, and red precon deck coming in Streets of New Capenna.
Alright, so before we get going too far with what's going on with this deck, what we're taking out, what we're putting in, we better have a look at what our commander is actually doing. This is the face commander from the deck, Anigal, sorry, the painter. A Death Touch 1/3. The first instant sorcery spell you cast each turn has casualty 2. So you can sack a creature with power 2 or greater, and if you do, you copy the spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So this is a spell slinger style commander that wants us to make tokens. There's a few token generators in these colors and whatnot, so that we can copy our spells and whatnot. So maybe we do want some aristocratic style things to try to win the game or whatnot. There's also just like a lot of Spellslinger Storm style things that we could do with this commander. So there's a few different options ahead of us. Not that we can't do kind of both, but I would say that you want to kind of mostly pick one lane or the other for the most part. I'm not very adept at either, to be honest, but I still know kind of what you're looking for a deck like this. So let's go ahead and have a look at this deck list for this commander, and have a look at some cards that we think we could take out for new cards that could be more useful for us. Alright, here we are checking out the deck list. Again, I'm not going to go too much through the reprint value and whatnot with these decks because, you know, we all know that some of the cards are going to be in flux, so, you know, it doesn't matter how much like value to a degree is in this. Like, it's cool that there's, I actually think yesterday I was looking and it was like $100. So some of the cards have gone up and some of the cards have gone down, especially like new cards. A lot of the time I find that people really don't know how good they are until, you know, well, for a fair while sometimes and whatnot. So, you know, cards get underrated and overrated all the time. Some cards are like, wow, this is such a bomb, and then people actually get to play with it. And it's like, well, no, it's not actually that good, but whatever. We're not really going to go through too much of that stuff here today. We're going to just go through and have a look at the cards that we want to take out, as I said. And I'm not really going to say it again and again, but again, obviously, taking out any of these tap lands that are just like there because they threw them in because this is a precon is a good idea, guys. You know, like, I'm pretty sure you guys know that. If you have any of the untapped dual lands or even just like basic lands, toss them in because they're better than most of these tap lands and whatnot. So it does depend what you have again, but again, for the most part, like, even some of the ones that enter untapped or can enter untapped, this is a 3-color deck, so we're not going to have too many islands and swaps. Like, we're going to have none, but again, like, the likeliness of having some of those enter untapped. Actually, Crumbling Necropolis is fine, but Darkwater Catacombs can also go out because it's one of those signet lands that's kind of bad and whatnot. I was thinking about these new ones, the theaters and whatnot. They're okay, but they're basically just evolving wilds that you don't have to tap and immediately sack. So I don't know. There's no real upside downside to that. I don't know, but whatever. Same with sort of Shadowborn Ridge. It can get out of there because it's one of those signet lands, and it's really nuisance to have to tap it and leave mana up or whatnot and make sure things go well. But beyond that, let's get back to actual real cards that I'm going to suggest. I think this deck does need more ramp, honestly, as well. There's some okay ones here, but I'd take out Command Sphere. Command Sphere is not that amazing. and I'll take out the buggy as well. I don't know what it's really doing here. You can get something else that does more and it does it better. Most of the creatures that are in this deck, I would say to take out as well, because most of them aren't really that amazing. Like Bloodsoaked Champion's pretty decent. Actually, the new Dodge Detective seems okay, but it is a bit reliant on what our opponents are kind of doing, so I would take it out in favour of something else, but you could leave that one in. That one's still pretty fine. Electromancer's fine. Night Skyclave Shade's pretty cool as well. Squeed's pretty good as well. I don't know about Woe Strider, but whatever. Clemoria, whatever her name is here. Like, I could see the argument for her being in the deck to a degree because she's kind of like a mana rock, but it takes 5 mana to get 3 mana. I don't know. You can only use it to cast instant sorceries. Like, instant sorceries are a main part of our deck, but again, I don't know. Kess is okay, but again, it's once per round, essentially. So it's nice that we've got these reprint, because Kess is a pretty popular commander and pretty powerful sort of card in a sense, but again, we could find more things that would be better. Rekindling Phoenix is sort of in the same boat. Nice kind of reprint for the most part. Some people might want it for something, but I don't think it really fits in what we're really doing. This new Phoenix commander is pretty cool with it and whatnot, so maybe you can put it into a Phoenix commander deck. But obviously it's not nearly that good in the deck overall. Actually, Pyrenees, I'm not sure, is okay, but we could find, again, much better things that help us not be countered or have counters in our deck. Puppet, like, cool in a sense, like we can steal our opponent's stuff and sack their stuff instead of having to sack our own stuff and whatnot. But I just think it's a lot of hoops to kind of go through. We could just play an act of treason, steal one of their things, or even steal 2 of their things by copying it, or some of our opponent's things and whatnot, and then sack our opponent's things, like by copying other spells later. And I want to say that most of the spells that I would want to play in this deck, I want to play instants. I don't want to play too many sorceries. Not that we can play none, but I would say that we want to move away from sorceries as much as possible, because we need to trigger that ability of our commander on everyone's turn. So we want way more instants than what's in this deck. I would take out maybe some of these cards like Ponder and Preordain. They're really good, I get it, but again, we want more instants, so we could Consider and Opt over them. They're, pretty darn good. Damnable Pack I would take out as well. Dread Summons I would take out. I would take out Feed the Swarm, to be honest, but I know some people say, well, it's the only way I can deal with enchantments or whatnot. Well, no, it's not. Well, yes, technically, I guess it is. You could use Chaos Warp or whatnot, but I would rather just, something else. Bedevil, I would take this out again, because 3 mana to just be able to hit creatures or artifacts. Planeswalker's never relevant enough, I would say. So, yeah, I wouldn't really consider it. Some of the new spells are actually really decent, like Body Count's pretty decent, but we're never really going to have that many creatures, I don't think. But then again, we could. But these sort of one-off effects, for the most part, I don't know. The Charms, I don't know. It is instant, but again, just, I don't know. It's just, not really where I would think you want to be. Exiling cards is good, and you make zombies, that's fine. I don't know about Chain Reaction, but Chain Reaction could be okay. I actually like a lot of flashback cards as well, especially if you've got instant speed flashback cards, because, again, you can reuse them and reuse them, or sort of reuse them and reuse them, but you can reuse them again on the next player's turn. Drawn from Dreams, probably take it out. Fact or fiction, like, I think it's good as an instant and it's good card selection and whatnot, but our opponent gets to choose the cards that we kind of get. So, or well, they choose the piles that we have to choose from. So I would rather take this out for something else. I know it's real good, but we're not playing like a flashback. Well, we are playing some flashback cards, and we are playing some sort of graveyard-ish recursion stuff with some of the cards that we've got. But again, I would take it out because we want to be in control of what we're doing. We don't want our opponents to be in control. This is an interesting sort of pseudo board wipe, but I would like look for something else. Sever the Bloodline, I'd take it out. Tower Invocation, no, I wouldn't put this in because it's like, well, just making things that we could make with a Talrand much more easily and many more times and whatnot. We could have more sack outlets and whatnot. So we don't want to sack two things just to get two things, I don't think, for the most part. Though if you're going right down the sack plan, maybe that's a bit more better. This is an interesting spell, Faller's Foggery, Foggery, or whatever it's called. But I do feel like it's a bit too reliant and a bit too much mana to a degree for what we're doing. It's just one of those cards that kind of very clunky and whatnot, so I wouldn't really think about it. Mystic Confluence is okay, not too amazing. Actually, Zender Split's Judgment's okay, not too amazing, but it is 5 mana. Hex, nah, get it out of here. I forget what this does. Yeah, I don't think it's really worth the slot. Shuffles, sacrifice a creature, put an XX thing. No, I don't really think it's worth the time. River's Rebuke's just not that amazing. No, can't read these ones. We're going to have to move. What have we got here? Where were we? We were here. Exile's a tough card. Mega cast spells. Again, we can take our opponent's stuff, but again, we don't have control over what we're going to get. We could get 3 lands, or whatever. So you've got to take that into consideration, especially being this is a 6 mana spell. Sure, we can copy it, but that really doesn't matter that much. Yes, it does matter a bit, but not nearly enough to be like, well, now we're off to the races. We want our 6 and 7 mana spells to be doing more. Call the Skybreaker, it could be good, but again, we could just do better and have more efficient spells. So I would not think too much of it. Army of the Damned, same sort of thing. We could just do better. Dig Through Time, it can be a lot cheaper with Delve, which is good, but I wouldn't want to exile too many things from our graveyard because we're trying to utilize most of the cards in our graveyard. So I wouldn't really think about this too much unless you've got lots of looting style effects and you've put a lot of lands into your graveyard. I wouldn't think about it. Clone Legion could be a game winner, but again, it could also just do nothing. So that's where I'm just at with this card. I would think to take it out to actually generate something. Even though I'd said Army of the Damned's not that amazing, some effects like this could be really good, but I would think you would prefer everyone loses life or everyone, whatnot, exsanguinate, whatnot, torment of hailfire, this sort of style of effects, because that actually shuts out the game really quickly or gets rid of a whole bunch of our opponent's stuff as well, or at least makes them have less resources. That means that we can get in those last few points of damage and whatnot, whatever. Beyond that, I don't think there's much to talk about in this deck. for what we want. So I think we'll move on now and go and have a look at some of the cards that I'll suggest to maybe put in. Alrighty, so here we are on EDH Rec, looking at some Spellslinger style commanders that are in the right colours, because it's very hard to get these cards online before release or even at release or whatnot. So we've got to look at sort of similar things. We want to cast spells during every single turn. That's kind of what we want. So I don't really know whether we want Kess. Kess can be good on our turn, but that's kind of about it. We want a lot more things that do things on our opponent's turns as well, I think. So Kess could be okay, but it probably would be a bit slow in my opinion, because again, we would have to rely on getting Terra upkeep every single time to really do a whole lot with it, but it still could be useful. I don't think Giavella would be that good. It's not really doing a whole lot with what we're doing. Inala, same thing. Like, we could go and have some wizards in here, but that wouldn't really do us a whole lot. So let's just keep moving. There's not much there right now. Here we go. Goblin Electromancer, pretty good. Reduces spells cost. Archmage Emeritus just draws his card. Really good. Stormkiln Artist, again, just makes us extra mana, which is really good. Now, this is where I'm kind of gonna say you've got to try to draw the line. Is this just a spell deck, or is this just, an aristocrats deck, or which way are you going with it, kind of thing, to a degree? Because if you start putting in too many gutter snipe effects, the gutter snipe I think will be fine, no matter what, to a degree. If you put too many of these payoffs only for one half of the deck and you don't draw that half of the deck, you do all the aristocratic stuff, then these cards start doing less and less and less, and it starts becoming less and less effective. So you really want the effects that, you can, reliably be like, oh, okay, well, it doesn't really matter which side of the deck this is in. To the most part, I will be casting spells anyway. We want a lot of cheap instants for the most part. Like Frantic Search will be really good because, again, it just untaps our lands and gives us free mana and whatnot. So that can be really good. Looting through our deck can be useful as well, and whatnot. I don't really like these cheap cantrip style of effects for the most part. But to make the most of our mana in the early parts of the game, that's kind of what you need. So we're looking for a lot of Tauran style effects as well, beyond just like these kind of cantrips and things that do stuff when we cast spells, so that we can make those drakes so that we can copy our spells. It's really great that we have these cheapening effects or whatnot, or these draw effects of our cards, because that's really good anyway, but we still really want to copy our spells. We want fodder for those things. Thousand Year Storm can be really good, but again, it's kind of a card that it's very much on the spell side and not much on the aristocrats stuff side. I'm not going to say to put in really good, obviously good cards like Talisman of Creativity and cards like that, because it's just kind of obvious. I think also Nightscape Familiar kind of does the same thing as Goblin Electromancer and whatnot, so can be really useful. Baral's also pretty good, but he's mediumly expensive and whatnot. Even Young Pyromancer can be pretty decent because we have those bodies to sack, so it doesn't really matter. Savagemaw Witch, same kind of thing. Bergie gives us free mana. Also, just I'm seeing Thassa's Oracle here, I'm assuming that there's a lot of decks that are in the CDH meta that kind of use different combos to empty your deck and then play this. So that's kind of not what we're doing, though you could have this as another win condition if you really want, because everyone knows how good of a win condition it is. Murmuring Mystic, same sort of thing, just gives us more fodder to copy spells and whatnot. Mizzix is real good because, again, draws us cards for spells and whatnot, and that's what we're going to be doing. I like Veyron. Veyron seems pretty darn decent. Veyron can copy the abilities of any of our stuff that triggers whenever we magecraft, whenever we cast or copy a spell, essentially. Harmonic Prodigy can kind of do the same thing, so that can be pretty useful, but it's only for shamans and wizards. There's a lot of wizards going to be probably in this deck. Not a lot of ETB stuff, so that's kind of why I went away from Anala and whatnot. But still, double triggering some of our stuff will be really useful. So we could definitely use that. Vadrik, I think Vadrik, pretty decent. I did think that it wasn't that amazing as a commander, but in a deck like this, it's pretty darn decent. And can do some stuff. Yeah, it's not as good as some of the other options, but still it can be useful. I don't know about Dragon Rage Challenger, but we do want some sort of card advantage and whatnot, and it can get pretty big, but it doesn't really give us any fodder or anything unless we sack it. So I don't know. I think Docent of Perfection can be pretty useful as well, but again, at a certain point you need to decide which of these kind of you want and which of these you don't kind of want, because at a certain point you've hit the, well, I've already got to the point where I'm kind of like too many. I would say the flying ones are kind of better than the non-flying ones for the most part, because again, you're going to get more damage out of the flyers for the most part than the ground things, but whatever. That's me thinking about how you can utilize those creatures the best. Electrostatic field, more damage, real good, but still we can't get the copying off of it. Actually, Hellkite could be really good, even if we have to sacrifice the things that we're making. So yeah, maybe. I'm thinking that could be good. Because we'll just like at a certain point, like at the nearing the end of the game, it will be useful to close out the game because we'll have those hasty creatures. But for the rest of the game, we just want to keep cantripping and keep copying our spells or whatnot. Although it's only the first spell that we cast that we really care about, so any spell after the first one would start generating us these things. So yeah, still could be really useful. Reality chips certainly are more useful than what I kind of thought it was, but it's certainly more of a 99 good card. It's certainly not a commanderly good card. Smoldering Egg can be pretty good, though it is kind of slow-ish, but so is Thing in the Ice, and this is better than Thing in the Ice, I would say. I think Hullbreaker Horror would be good if we could cheat it out, but I don't really think there is ways. Thermo Alchemist could be good because, again, we can cast spells and tap it and do damage and untap it and cast more spells, tap it and whatnot, all of that sort of stuff. So it could be useful. Delika could be good again, but this is kind of like what I was saying before. You've got to kind of find the ones that are the best of these. I do like that it's a big token to a degree with some of these, because that's sometimes the problem is you're just like, here's my bunch of random 1/1s and they can't do a whole lot. It's nice to have more power, but a lot of the time it does become like, well, unless they have haste, they're not doing a whole lot, so I could just get damage in much more easily, in a sense, but again, that's more there for the fodder, I guess, for the most part. I think Locust God could be good, because we are, like, having a lot of cantrips in the deck and drawing lots of cards, so it could be useful, again, but again, I think you want sort of like this. This is certainly much better than what I think this is, because again, flying much more effective. The bodies are less important sometimes, so you don't mind sacking them too much. Whatnot. Firebrand Archer and cards like this, obviously pretty darn good. I'm not going to go through too many of the instant sorceries for a deck like this. For the most part, because even though that's our bread and butter to the most part, we want more things that do more throughout more of the game than what these will mostly offer us. That's just the way that I look at it for the most part. There's not much here that really, steps out. It's obvious like a lot of the cards that are really good are the kind of cards that you kind of want for the most part, like Jeska's Will and things like that, or whatever, things that give you card advantage and mana back for casting them, or just so cheap and efficient that they're real good. But again, I prefer much like 4 mana spells that draw more than one card, just not replacing themselves. But when we have card advantage engines out, they're certainly a lot better because then we draw more cards and whatnot for our cheaper cantrips and things like that. So they still can be useful. I get that. But anyway, we'll keep moving on down here, going through to see what else we can do. Of course, we could go through the Aetherflux Reservoir thing and gain a whole bunch of life for all the spells that we're casting to, laser beam some peoples out of the game, which can be really useful. Boulder Citadel, obviously really good. Sentinel Tower can be just as good as Aetherflux in many ways. I think actually Sorcerer Cast is kind of underrated. It can be really useful. Jace's Sanctum can be okay, but again, at a certain point you need to be like, well, this is a 4 mana thing that, gets in the way of me actually doing everything else. The same with like Double Vision, Swarm Intelligence, these things that just copy things and whatnot. They can be really good, but again, they kind of get in the way of you having enough density sometimes of spells. Shark Typhoon could be good. Metallurgic Summonings could be good. But these are much bigger tokens, so again, you probably want them to end the game for the most part. I think Metallurgic Summoning tokens, since they're on the ground, are a lot worse. Shark Typhoon's tokens are at least in the air. That means they'll get in much easier and whatnot. But I think we're not going to go through Planeswalkers, and I'm not going to go through utility lands and mana rocks and things like that because it's kind of obvious, or lands and whatnot, because it's kind of obvious you guys would use Steam Vents or whatnot if you have access to it and things like that, or the good mana rocks, obviously, if you have access to them or have the budget for them. So this is much more on the, again, sort of Spellslinger side. I could take the time here to have a quick look through the more aristocrat-y style of cards, but we've already been going for a good 12 minutes or so here, so I don't really want to make this video too long. But now I've done this sort of side of it, maybe if you guys really like and comment and tell me, hey, I want to see the more sacrifice aristocrat style build of this deck, whatnot, then I'll do it, because at least then I'll know people actually really want to see it and whatnot, so I'll get right on it. But other than that, that's pretty much it for here. And we'll move on and we'll get going to basically finishing up and wrapping up with this deck.
All right, that is the end of our look at the Maestros Massacre deck list here for today. You guys can tell me what you think about this deck tech that I've done here for today. Let me know whether you want to see that aristocrats side of the build and whatnot. As I was looking through the deck, I really saw some interesting things. Maybe we could put some very unique sort of some things in there and whatnot. Some certain things that were sort of leading more towards Gravecrawler style effects and whatnot. And I really think that could be very interesting if people are interested in it. But do let me know in the comments below if you do want to see that deck done. I'll be looking through those comments to see what you guys say. I will try to respond to any and all comments. Really love interacting with you guys, talking about EH and all these geeky things that we love. So I'll see you down there in the comments below, or I'll see you in the next one. Hey, you've just finished watching one of our videos. A bunch of other videos are popping up on your screen now for you to check out, so why not check them out?